Hey you guys, happy Friday. We have missed y'all so much, and today we are coming at you with our Friday Live all about ISO, okay?
ISO.
Tomato.
We're going to talk about it in this episode of Friday Live.
Yes, and it's... Awesome, you guys. Well, we are Graham and Ashley. We're the Scobeys. We are wedding photographers and elopement photographers based in Colorado. And we're really excited to talk about ISO.
Yes, we are. So, like Ashley said, we've been wedding photographers for over 10 years now, a decade. And ISO was one of those things that we had to learn about very early on in our career. To give you a little bit of background, we didn't really know what we were doing when we started a photography company. And the first thing that we had to learn was how to shoot in manual. Get our camera off of auto, put it into manual. And so if you've tuned into our Friday Lives in the past, you may have heard us talking about shutter speed and aperture,
the
triangle dance. These are all parts of shooting in manual, and we haven't dived into ISO.
We haven't dipped our toe into ISO.
Right, that's a better way to say it.
Divin.
So we thought we would spend a little bit of time today on this beautiful Friday in Colorado talking about one of the three most important camera settings.
Yes.
And ISO happens to be one of those.
A big one, absolutely. So we've said it before, we'll say it again because it is so friggin' true. All your camera cares about is time and light, right? And ISO is going to help you to control light, okay? And so the more you know about time and light and how your camera sees it and how you can kind of manipulate it, the more you can move away from just taking pictures and move towards making pictures.
Yes.
Which is the whole point of photography. This is something else that we say over and over and over again, is that what we want for you guys is for you to be able to get the pictures that are in your head, the creative vision that you have, out into the world, right?
Yes.
We hear all the time from people, they're like, well, it looked so good in my head, and then I took the picture with my camera and it was flat. It wasn't what I wanted it to be. I couldn't get it to translate. And the more you know about how your camera sees time and light, the more you're aware of how you can kind of tell your camera what to do, the more you're in the driver's seat of making images, making beautiful, creative, amazing images, and not just taking photos, right? There's a huge difference.
Yeah, so give us a little like or thumbs up if you have ever been there, right?
Yes.
If you've ever had a photo that's in your head that you really want to make and you can see it very clearly, but when you take the photo with your camera, it doesn't look the same. It doesn't look like what it was like in your head. Give us a little thumbs up if you can relate to that. I am hitting all the thumbs up.
I was going to say,
right now.
it happens to me all the time still.
Yeah.
It happens to me all the time, and it just is proof that we all have a lot of room to grow, which is a really good thing because it's definitely a journey, not a destination. And the whole point of photography is just kind of figuring out what you like and then letting that change as your skill set changes.
Yeah, but a part of that frustration is that sometimes we just don't know what to change, right? Like we don't know the settings that will help us get what we have in our head out into the world.
Yes.
And so, like I said, we've talked about shutter speed, we've talked about aperture. Mm-hmm. ISO is hugely important in that triangle dance because ISO determines how sensitive your camera is to the light that you're letting into it through your aperture, right? And for whatever period of time you're letting your shutter stay open. So if you have a really, really sensitive sensor in your camera and you're letting a ton of light in for a long amount of time, you're going to overexpose an image, right? Likewise, if you have a not very sensitive sensor and you're not letting enough light in, you're not letting that light hit your sensor for long enough, then you're going to have a underexposed photo. It's going to be dark and it's not going to be like the way you want to see that photo.
Yeah.
So ISO controls how sensitive your sensor is to light. Now, back in the film days,
Good old film. Give us a thumbs up if you still shoot film.
Yeah, or leave a comment and tell us, do you shoot film or do you shoot digital?
Yes.
I wonder, we should make that a poll.
You can both is a completely acceptable answer because that would be our answer.
Yeah, leave us a comment and tell us why you shoot what you shoot. Is it film? Is it digital? And why did you choose to shoot that way?
Yeah.
Film is an amazing, it's an amazing process. And it's a really good way to learn photography because you have to get it right.
Yeah, totally.
You only have 32 frames, and
every single one is costing you money.
Yeah, exactly. So it's really important to, when you're shooting film, to understand ISO in the same way that it is with digital. And sometimes we can just kind of get lazy with digital. Because we can shoot forever, or as long as we have a memory card to hold photos. But back in the film days, you would choose your ISO based...
you would choose your film based on your ISO.
Yeah, you would choose the way that you chose your ISO was what film you were putting in your camera.
Sorry, you were getting there.
Yeah. Ashley is she is very direct and to the point, and I like to use lots of words to say things.
I'm gonna walk all the way around the point, and then you're great. You're
Thanks.
the best.
I appreciate that.
I love you.
But we've got a box of film stock up on our gear closet here, and we've got a range of different ISOs. So when I take a roll of film out and I put it in my Hasselblad, I know that for the next 12 frames, I am shooting 400 ISO or I'm shooting 800 ISO.
Yeah, and numbers wise, just to put this out there too, the higher your ISO, the more sensitive your sensor is, your camera is, your film is to light.
That's right.
The lower the ISO, the less sensitive that camera film media is to light, just to give you the numbers of it.
Right. So you will see if you're looking at your camera, and in fact, why don't we look at my Fuji has a nice little ISO dial right here.
Oh.
So where the white dot is what it's set to. So right now it's set to 200. And you can see that I can turn this all the way up to 12,800, and then it even has a higher setting than that, right?
Yeah, some cameras can go up to like 200,000 ISO.
Yeah, it's getting ridiculous.
Crazy town.
So like Ashley said, the higher the number, the more sensitive your camera is to light. Now there is a downside that comes to a higher ISO on digital cameras.
Because some people would be like, well, why would I not just always shoot at a super high ISO, right? Like, why would I not walk into a dark room and just
crank that thing all the way
bump my camera up to 12,000 ISO?
Yeah.
This is why.
Typically, well, all the time, but more so with... This changes depending on the type of camera you have. But always, the higher the ISO, the more noise you're introducing into that photograph. And noise, it's a degradation of the image quality in your photo. So if you zoom way into a photo and you look at a photo that you took at ISO 12,800 versus ISO 400, you will see that it loses detail. It starts to get kind of fuzzy. There are artifacts that are introduced into that photo. A lot of times you can see this. The best way to experiment with how high you can push your ISO is to take your camera, whatever camera it is, take it into a relatively dark room, not like pitch black, but close the shutters. Siri thinks I'm talking to her.
We're not talking to you, Siri.
Go away, Siri. It thought that I wanted it to play.
She read my mind.
better pause that because we're gonna get a mature rating.
Oh, that's so funny. Why is that the one that came up of all things?
I don't know. I'm gonna have to go back and watch this and see what Siri thought I was talking about.
That was amazing.
But so go into a dark room. Close the blinds in a room or wait until it's nighttime. A room that has a little bit of ambient light, but not a ton, right? And start taking photos at different ISO settings. Take it at, ISO 400, and then go to 800, and then go to 1600, and then on and on and on, right? And take those photos and put them on a bigger screen. Try and put them on your computer. Look at them if you have Lightroom or like the Apple Photos application or whatever Windows equivalent of that is. And zoom way into the photo, into one of those shadow areas, and you'll start, as you flip through the photos, you'll start to see these little speckles, little colored speckles start to come into your photo. And so with your particular camera, you'll know, oh, okay, when I hit ISO 2400, that's when it starts to get a little grainy and I don't like those photos anymore. So then you can decide, okay, I'm going to back that down and compensate in some other way. Maybe I will open up my aperture and let more light in, or maybe I'll use a slower shutter speed. Maybe I'll change lenses to a lens that has a wider aperture so that I can let more light into my camera.
Absolutely. And that way you can just say like, okay, I know that for my camera and the quality of camera that I have and that ISO range that my camera has, that this is just too much. I don't want to push it past 12,000 ISO or whatever it is, like Graham was saying. The cool thing about ISO is it allows you to kind of with that triangle dance, right? It allows you to compensate in ways that will maybe still allow you to use a wider aperture or a faster shutter speed without having to change one of those variables. If you're in a really good spot with those variables and you just don't want to change them, you can change your ISO. That can kind of be the last thing that you think about in order to really make your exposure what you want it to be.
Totally. Yeah. So what does it look like? What are different scenarios that we can talk about that we would use a low or high ISO?
Yeah. So let's say I'm outside at my kid's soccer game and it is like today, as bright as can be. It's 95 degrees outside and there is no shade in sight. Right? We're going to use as low of an aperture, or I'm sorry, as low of an ISO as we possibly can, so that our camera is so less sensitive to light, right? We don't want our camera to be sensitive to light at all, right?
Yeah.
And yeah, go ahead.
So on this camera, on my Fuji, I can go down as low as 200, and then I have a low setting that goes a little bit lower. It's using software at that point. So I usually stick with what is the number that's on my dial. On Ashley's camera, I think you can go down to maybe ISO 100. Some cameras can go down to ISO 50. It just depends on what camera you have and what the capability, the ISO range of that camera is.
Yeah, mine's 100 and then it goes to low.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then if you are, let's say you're walking around Bryce Canyon. We did this last year. I took Evie to, we were on our road trip and we stayed near Bryce Canyon, and we had hiked through the canyon that day and it was beautiful. And as we were leaving, we saw a sign that said like Stargazers Party. And Evie and I were like, yeah, let's do that. And Ashley and Webb were like, we're out.
We're tired. We're going to be asleep at 10:30.
Evie and I are the night owls of our family.
Totally.
So we went back to our campsite, got everything situated, and then Evie and I headed back out. We went and we got to look through these amazing telescopes that the Park Service made available to everyone, and got to see planets and moons of planets, and did all this cool stuff. Well, after that, we were like, we should see it was this beautiful clear night. We were like, we should see what Bryce Canyon looks like in the moonlight, in the starlight. And so we drove over to the canyon, and Evie was just, I think the experience of seeing the stars and looking through these telescopes and seeing the planets, it was just this fascinating experience for her. And you could tell her mind was like just blown, and she was just staring up at the sky. And so I wanted to take a photo of that moment to remember this was the wonder that she had, right? And so she's just looking up at the sky, and I've got my Fuji, and if I were to just turn this on and try and take a photo with my normal aperture or my normal ISO setting, which was set to low because or to 200 because we were walking around that day, and that was the last time I'd used it, I would have to use a really, really long shutter speed, and I would get camera shake, which we've talked about before, right? If you ever get a photo back and you're like, I know this was in focus, why is it soft? It's probably because your shutter speed was so slow that it caught the shaking of your hands. I've got unsteady hands. So instead, I cranked my ISO way, way up. And this time, in this particular scenario, I knew that it didn't matter whether or not there was a little bit of noise in that photo.
Yeah.
One good thing is that like programs like Lightroom make it really easy to remove some of that noise. It was more important that I captured that moment than that it was a spectacularly crisp, high image quality photo. And so I cranked my ISO way up. I opened my aperture all the way up, and I used a pretty slow shutter speed, and that allowed enough light to come into my camera that I got this photo of her looking up at the sky. Her face is lit by the moon, and you can see the shadows and the shapes of Bryce Canyon behind her and kind of this beautiful sky behind her. So that's how you can use ISO to create the photos that you have in your head, right? It gives you a lot of leeway to tell your camera, this is a scenario where we're going to have a lot of light, so I don't want you to be very sensitive to light. Or this is a scenario where I need you to be more sensitive to light than my eye is even, right?
A couple of examples we have here. So
that's the wrong thing.
Yeah, let's go to this one.
Yeah.
So this image was taken at a high ISO. We were on our road trip, and as you do on road trips, we went to the laundromat because sometimes things get dirty and you don't want to pack too much laundry, you know? So this image was taken at a higher ISO. I think it was ISO like 1250 because we were indoors with limited light in this laundromat, and we really wanted our cameras to be more sensitive to what little light we had. Right. And so that was kind of creating that image for us, or helping us create the image we had in our heads. On the other hand, this image was taken at Joshua Tree, and we were obviously outside. It was obviously very bright. So this image was taken at an extremely low ISO, probably like ISO 200, because we wanted our camera in this moment to be less sensitive to the abundant light that we had in this midday sun. Because if we had set our camera's ISO higher, this image would be overexposed, right? We wouldn't have any of the color density, any of the details in our kiddos' faces or in that Joshua Tree that was really what we had in our head for this picture.
Totally. So that is ISO. As always, if you have questions or comments, or if you had an experience where ISO was your best friend, leave them in the comments. Like this video if it's been helpful, and hit the subscribe button on YouTube. We have grown our list with little high five moments.
And high five to you guys.
High five. We've grown our list of subscribers on YouTube to over 100, which was our original goal when we started our YouTube channel. We are 10 timesing that. How do you say that? We're
moving that needle.
We're moving the needle. Our next goal is to hit 1,000 subscribers. Yeah. And when we do, we're doing a huge giveaway. We're going to give away some of our favorite camera things, and we're also going to give away some of the courses that we put together to teach you how to shoot in manual and how to create the photos that you have in your head and get those out into the world. Yeah. So if you like this video, again, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. When you hit the subscribe button, there will be a little bell. If you hit that, it'll notify you every time we go live with more videos. We do these every week, and so you'll get notified every time we go live. Also, if you are interested in learning how to shoot in manual and you just don't know where to get started, we've put together a super easy cheat sheet for free for you. You can find that down at this link right here, manualbootcamp.com, and that'll get you started in shooting in manual.
Yep, and we are so excited to see you guys next Friday. We are going, we're leaving on Sunday for a 2-week-long road trip.
Yes.
We're going out to... Where are we going? Lake Tahoe, Yosemite.
Going through Salt Lake City, then Lake Tahoe, then we're doing Yosemite. We have a personal family quest to go to every single national park in the U.S. before our kids graduate, and we only have like 8 years left. So
talk about that. Oh my gosh, yes, only 8 more years, so we got to get on this. We've seen a lot, but we're gonna check off 4 on this trip?
3, I think. We got Yosemite, Great Basin, and Capitol Reef.
Yes. So we're coming at you live next Friday from a beautiful spot, and we're going to be doing our live on the road. So if you guys have any questions at all, anything you'd like us to do videos on, just comment and let us know. We're here for you, and we're so excited for you on this journey.
Yeah, we can't wait to see you guys next week.
Yay!
See ya.
Bye.